The great chamber of the Galactic Council stood like a monument to unity. Its high crystal ceiling caught the light of the distant star and turned it into waves of soft color that danced across the walls. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in curved rows, each seat carved in the style of their homeworld. Some were round and smooth, some tall and spindly, others cushioned with soft fabrics that seemed to shift in color. At the center of it all was the speaking platform, a simple ring of polished metal where delegates came to address the galaxy. On that day, the hall was quieter than usual. Every voice had fallen silent as Mira, the human envoy, stepped forward. She was not dressed in the elaborate robes some species wore. Instead, she wore a plain dark suit with a small silver emblem of Earth on her shoulder. She carried no scroll, no tablet, no prepared statement. Only her steady gaze moved across the gathered leaders. The council speaker, a tall figure with translucent skin that shimmered in the light, announced her presence. "Delegate Mira of Earth, you have the floor." Mira gave a polite nod. "Thank you, speaker." Her voice carried easily in the hall, clear and steady. She paused for a moment, not because she needed to gather her thoughts, but because she wanted every eye on her before she began. "Honored members of the council," she said, "I have come to deliver a decision from my people. We will no longer be taking part in these peace talks." The statement seemed to ripple through the chamber like a sudden cold wind. A few delegates shifted in their seats. Some tilted their heads in confusion, while others leaned forward as if they had misheard her. The speaker's expression remained neutral, but the slight tilt of their head showed interest. "Humanity," Mira continued, "entered these talks with hope. We believed that the Council sought to build true peace between all member worlds. We believed in cooperation, fairness, and respect. But month after month, we have seen our concerns brushed aside. Agreements that would have benefited many have been delayed, changed, or ignored altogether. This is not the path to peace." A representative from the crystalline worlds, seated near the front, raised a hand. "Delegate Mira, surely there is room for further discussion. Walking away serves no one." Mira turned toward them, her expression unchanged. "We have discussed. We have waited. We have been patient. But peace cannot be built by one side alone. If our voice carries no weight here, then there is no point in lending it." The council chamber had rules against interruption, but soft murmurs began to fill the air. The speaker raised a hand for silence. "Are you certain this is the will of your people, delegate?" "Yes," Mira said simply. "This decision comes from our leaders and is supported by our citizens. We will honor existing treaties, but we will not participate in these negotiations any longer." There was no anger in her tone, no bitterness, only calm resolve. That, perhaps, made her words feel even heavier. A representative from the ocean world shifted uneasily. The council has never had a member species withdraw from peace talks before. This is unusual. "Perhaps," Mira replied, "but humanity is not here to follow tradition for tradition's sake. We are here to achieve results. If those results are not possible in this chamber, we will seek them elsewhere." The hall grew still again. Even the slow hum of the translation system seemed quieter. Mira looked around one last time, meeting the eyes of each representative. Who dared to look back? "We came in good faith," she said. "We leave with the same, but without illusions. If, in the future, the council is ready to treat us as true equals, we will be ready to talk again. Until then, we wish you well." She stepped back from the speaking ring and gave a short, respectful bow toward the speaker. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the tall double doors at the far end of the hall. No one moved to stop her. The sound of her footsteps echoed against the polished floor. Behind her, the speaker called for the next agenda item, but their voice felt hollow in the space she had left. Delegates exchanged quiet glances, some curious, some unsettled. A few whispered in their native tongues, wondering if this was a negotiation tactic. Surely the humans would return. They always returned. Outside the chamber, the sun of Heliora cast warm light across the white stone plaza. Mira walked toward the shuttle port, where the rest of her small delegation waited. They had already packed. Their travel cases lined neatly beside the transport craft. No one asked her what had happened inside. They already knew. As the shuttle lifted from the plaza, the city's shining spires fell away beneath them. The craft joined the steady stream of vessels rising toward the orbital station. Yet it felt different. Final. In the council chamber, the meeting continued, but the air felt heavier. Some delegates tried to ignore the absence. Others quietly made notes to contact human trade officials later. A few simply stared at the now empty speaking ring, as if expecting her to return at any moment. By the end of the day, the matter had already started to fade from the official record. Yet for those who had been there, the image of the human envoy leaving without a backward glance would not be forgotten. It was not the departure itself that stayed with them, it was the way she had spoken, not in anger or haste, but with certainty. Somewhere in the back of many minds, a quiet thought formed. What would it mean for the galaxy if humanity truly meant what it had said? The departure of the human delegation was not loud or dramatic. There were no protests, no grand speeches, no signs of conflict. It was almost a quiet, and that was what unsettled many who saw it happen. From the shuttle port, Mira's team boarded the long silver transport that would take them to the jump gate. The crew worked in silence. No one hurried, but no one lingered either. Every movement seemed deliberate, as if they had rehearsed this many times before. Helia's sky was bright and filled with the shimmer of hundreds of craft. Moving along air lanes above the city, the human ship joined the flow smoothly, gliding past other transports and small cargo haulers from the observation deck. The city below looked like an endless pattern of gleaming towers and curved bridges. It was beautiful, but the humans barely looked at it. Their minds were already far from this world. Inside the Galactic Council complex, word of their departure spread quickly. Some members treated it as a minor event. Others could not stop talking about it. Delegates in long corridors leaned toward one another in quiet conversations. The phrases repeated most often were "they will be back," and "it is only a tactic." Counselor Vesh, representative of the fertile moons of Oral, spoke to a group of curious delegates. Humans are practical. This is a way to gain leverage. They will wait for us to call them back, and then they will return with new demands. It is a common method among traders in my system. Another delegate, a soft voice being from the mist, Worlds, disagreed. No, the humans have a history of acting quickly once they have made a decision. They do not seem to leave matters half-finished. Still, most of the chamber leaned toward Vesh's view. The council had existed for centuries, and no member world had ever completely withdrawn from such an important negotiation. Surely humanity would not be the first to do so without planning to return. Up on the orbital station, Mira stood near the viewport as their transport prepared for departure. The curve of Helia hung beneath them, its seas and lands glowing in the light of the system's star. The station's docking arms extended and retracted in careful rhythm, moving ships in and out like a slow dance. Her aide, Tomas, stepped up beside her. "Do you think they understand why we left?" he asked quietly. Mira shook her head. "Not yet. They think this is part of their game. But we are not playing their game anymore." Tomas looked out at the star field beyond the station. "Do you think they will ask us back?" "They might," Mira said. "But the question is not whether they ask. The question is whether they change." The ship eased away from the docking ring and began its slow turn toward the jump gate. The gate itself was a vast ring of shining metal floating in deep space, large enough for the biggest council warship to pass through. It glowed faintly with the energy of the stable wormhole inside it, linking Helia's system to distant stars. As the human transport approached, the station control hailed them, confirming their clearance to depart. Other ships waited in line, their navigation lights blinking in soft patterns. The human crew watched the gate grow larger until it filled the forward view. Then, with a gentle push from the main drives, the transport slipped through, and the stars beyond shifted into the swirling blue of the wormhole corridor. Back in the council chamber, the speaker called for the next session to begin. The humans' departure was not on the official agenda. However, a few representatives brought it up under general discussion. One delegate asked if the council should send a message requesting them to reconsider. Another suggested they simply wait until humanity requested readmission to the talks. After all, the council was the largest political body in the galaxy. No single member could afford to stay away for long. Councillor Vesh repeated his earlier view. Humans are bold, but they are not foolish. They need our trade, our markets, and our alliances. They will return soon enough. No vote was taken, and the discussion moved on to other matters. Yet there was an unspoken awareness that something about this situation felt different. It was not just that the humans had left, it was the way they had left, with no sign of hesitation. Far from Heliura, the human transport emerged from the wormhole into the quiet darkness of the Nexus system. Here, the only station in orbit was human-built, with clean lines and a practical design. Waiting nearby were two other human vessels, ready to escort them back to Earth's territory. Mira stepped onto the command deck as the captain exchanged greetings with the escort ships. Outside the viewport, the blue glow of the wormhole gate faded into the black of open space. Ahead lay the long route home, through systems where no council presence existed anymore. Tomas joined her again, carrying a small datapad. We've already received messages from our colonies, he said. They are ready to adjust supply routes if the council cuts trade. Mira took the datapad and scanned the reports. Good. We will need to rely on ourselves for a while. That is not a weakness, it is an opportunity. For the rest of the journey, the crew worked quietly, checking cargo inventories, reviewing fleet assignments, and sending updates to Earth Command. There was no celebration, no speeches about victory or defiance. They were simply following a path they had chosen together. Meanwhile, in Heliura's great markets, traders noticed a small but sudden change. Human merchants, usually easy to find, had closed their stalls or sold their last stock before leaving. Supply chains that depended on Earth's goods found themselves making new arrangements. Some traders shrugged it off. Others felt a small worry take root in their minds. 1 week after the humans left, the first reports reached the council about slowdowns in several border sectors. These were areas where human patrols often operated, keeping travel safe and helping smaller worlds maintain open lanes. Without them, schedules were slipping, and smaller traders were complaining. Still, the council leadership did not act. They believed the humans would contact them soon. After all, it had only been a short time, yet somewhere in the quiet corners of the council's capital, a few experienced diplomats exchanged uneasy glances. They remembered Mira's last words. They remembered the way she had walked out of the chamber without looking back. It was not the step of someone planning to return tomorrow. It was the step of someone already walking toward a different future. The Heliura jump gate had always been busy. At almost any hour, ships from dozens of worlds came and went, traders carrying goods, passenger liners carrying tourists, and patrol craft keeping the lanes clear. The glow of the wormhole never seemed to fade, and the hum of arriving and departing vessels was part of the station's daily life. But now, something was missing. At first, it was hard to notice. The docks still bustled, and the market stalls on the station still offered food and trinkets from across the galaxy. Yet regular travelers began to see it. The human ships, once so common here, were gone. It had been 2 weeks since the human delegation left the council, and the absence had begun to feel real. Before, there had always been at least one human cargo vessel in port, its crew chatting with locals or trading supplies with other ships. Now the berths where they usually docked stood empty, their maintenance lights dark. Station Master Arova kept track of traffic reports every morning. She was a calm, organized person, used to the predictable patterns of ships. But as she looked over the logs for the 3rd week in a row, she noticed something unusual. There had been no human vessels passing through Heliura space at all. Not one passenger liner, not one cargo freighter, not even a small scout. She brought it up at the station's daily operations meeting. I know the humans withdrew from the talks, but traffic like this doesn't just stop without reason. Has anyone spoken to their trade office? A junior officer shrugged. The office on Heliora closed a few days after the delegation left. Their sign is still there, but the building is empty, another officer added. We tried sending messages through regular channels. No response. It's as if they've shut down every route to us. The room grew quiet, even though none of them were diplomats. They understood what it meant for a species to close its gates so completely. On the Council's central world, similar reports were starting to arrive. The Trade Department had records showing delays in shipments that normally came from human-controlled space, fuel deliveries, medical supplies, and certain rare metals all had dropped sharply. Councillor Vesh was not concerned. He told the Assembly they are posturing. When their supply routes start to suffer, they will come back to the table. But in the lower levels of the Council building, the staff who handled communications were beginning to worry. The humans had not only stopped sending ships, they had also stopped replying to any requests for meetings. Messages sent through official council channels received only a polite, automated notice, transmission received. No response at this time. In one outer system near the border of human space, a trader named Pell ran a small shipping company. He had often worked alongside human convoys, as they were known for keeping careful watch over the lanes. On his latest run, he noticed something unusual without the human ships. The route felt strangely empty. It's like traveling through an unlit street at night. He told his crew, "You don't see trouble, but you feel it could appear at any time." Other traders in the region began reporting similar feelings. The lanes were quieter, but not in a comforting way. Without human patrols or supply stations, the emptiness felt like a gap in a wall that had always been there. Back on Earth, the withdrawal from the Council was not seen as a defeat. News broadcasts showed images of busy shipyards, new trade hubs being built in orbit, and long lines of freighters moving between colonies. The human fleet was reorganizing, redirecting its routes inward toward its own systems. In the Sol system, the great orbital stations above Earth and Mars were running at full capacity. Cargo that once flowed to Council markets was now being routed to human colonies in the outer regions. The shipyards at Luna were producing new vessels, their silver hulls glinting in the sunlight for the people living in human space. The change felt like a fresh start. Many believed that relying less on the Council would make them stronger in the long run. On Heliora, the Speaker of the Council received a private report from the Transportation Ministry. It showed that without human convoys, average travel times between certain border worlds had increased by nearly 40%. The report also noted a rising number of minor incidents, navigation errors, missing cargo containers, and delayed communications. The Speaker read the report twice before setting it aside. They did not share it with the full Council yet. The official position remained that the humans would return soon. But deep down, the Speaker wondered if they were watching the first signs of something larger. In the great plaza outside the Council building, travelers from across the galaxy went about their daily business. Vendors sold food and crafts, transport. Pilots advertised trips to nearby systems, and small groups of tourists wandered between the tall, curved statues. The scene looked normal, but even here the absence was felt. A small cafe that had once served as a meeting place for human and alien pilots now had empty tables. The owner had already removed the menu items imported from Earth. They were no longer available. Weeks turned into a month. The gap in the Heliora jump gate's traffic flow had grown so obvious that even casual visitors noticed. Ships that once followed human-led routes were now searching for new paths. Some captains began avoiding certain sectors entirely, preferring longer but more predictable courses. In the Council chamber, a few delegates quietly suggested reopening talks with humanity, but each time, the majority voted to wait. The belief that humans would eventually return remained strong, though no one could point to clear evidence. One evening, Station Master Arova walked through the docking bay on her inspection rounds. The lights were dim, and the air carried the faint scent of metal and fuel. She paused at one of the large berths near the edge of the bay, the one where human freighters had always docked. The berth's access doors were closed, and its status screen displayed a simple message: no vessel assigned. She stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet hum of the station around her. The emptiness of that berth felt heavier than she had expected. It was not just a missing ship. It was a missing presence, far away, in human space. The last traces of regular council traffic were leaving. The gates at the edge of their territory stood under quiet watch by human vessels. No one was turned away without reason, but those who passed through found the experience polite yet distant. The galaxy was beginning to feel the shape of the space humanity had left behind. It was a shape no one had noticed before, because it had always been filled. Now, as the council waited for a return that did not come, the empty gate of Heliura became a quiet reminder that something had changed and might never be the same again. The first real problems began quietly at the outer edges of council space. Far from the bright capital of Heliura, small worlds depended on steady trade and reliable travel routes. Many of these worlds were not powerful enough to maintain large fleets of their own, so they relied on shared patrol schedules where human ships had once played a major role. Without the human convoys, the rhythm of the lanes began to change. Ships that were used to traveling in groups now moved alone. Transit beacons that had been checked and maintained by human crews went weeks without inspection. Messages sent from smaller stations took longer to reach central hubs. At first, these changes were simply an inconvenience. Deliveries were delayed, and some schedules had to be adjusted. But after 2 months, the delays became longer, and certain goods were becoming harder to find. On the world of Sorel, a busy mining colony, Administrator Hall met with her trade coordinator. The supply shipment from the eastern corridor is late again, she said, looking at the report in her hand. That is the third delay in 2 weeks. The coordinator nodded. Without the human convoys, ships are taking longer routes. Some captains are refusing to pass through the old sectors entirely. They say travel feels less certain now. Hal frowned. It is not just a feeling. I have been hearing the same from our partners on 3 other colonies. Routes that were always safe now have problems with navigation markers. No one is repairing them as quickly as before. Meanwhile, in the council chamber on Heliura, reports from border systems began to arrive in small numbers. Each one described the same pattern. Longer travel times, fewer ships on certain routes, and the absence of human patrol vessels. Councillor Vesh still dismissed the concerns. These are temporary matters. Once the humans return, all of this will correct itself. It is a passing phase. But not everyone agreed. Councillor Neri from the star cluster of Errol raised her voice in the assembly. This is not a passing phase. This is the slow breakdown of a system we all depend on. Humans filled a role we have not replaced. We must decide whether to reach out to them or prepare to take on that work ourselves. Her words caused a quiet stir in the chamber, but the speaker decided to postpone the discussion until the next cycle. The official stance remained unchanged: wait for the humans to return. Far from the council, in the deep black between the stars, captains were beginning to notice new patterns. Trader Pell, who had traveled the outer lanes for years, now saw fewer familiar faces at each port. It's strange, he told his crew during a quiet evening in the ship's mess. We used to see at least one human vessel every trip. They kept to themselves, but they were always around. Now the routes feel open in the wrong way. His navigator nodded. The space feels wider, but not safer. On Heliura's orbital station Master Rover received a quiet request from the Transportation Ministry. They wanted a full record of human traffic through the gate for the last 3 years, along with notes on which routes had been most active. It was an unusual request, but she complied. When the ministry's analysts reviewed the data, the pattern was clear. Human convoys had been more frequent on the most fragile trade routes, the ones connecting small colonies to the larger hubs. Without them, the small worlds were feeling the change first. Back in human space, preparations were well underway to adjust to life without council cooperation. Shipyards were building new freighters, and colony stations were strengthening their own travel networks. Large cargo vessels were being reassigned to supply routes between human-controlled systems, and new navigation beacons were being placed in deep space. Mira followed the progress from her post at Earth's Central Administration Center. The reports came in: daily construction ahead of schedule, supply chains running smoothly, and colonies reporting stable growth. Humanity was adjusting faster than many had expected. One morning, she received a private message from an old acquaintance on Heliura. It was short and cautious. Things are beginning to slip here. They will not admit it yet, but they feel your absence. If they call for you, will you answer? Mira replied only with, "We will answer when they are ready to listen." On the far side of Council space, on a water-rich world named Lurin, a port master named Kelra was facing her own challenge. The shipments of medical supplies that usually arrive every 2 weeks were now coming once a month. The delays were beginning to affect hospitals and research labs. Kelra contacted the Council's trade office, but the answer was always the same alternate. Shipments would be arranged soon. Soon, however, was beginning to sound less certain each time she heard it. The speaker finally called for a special session to address the growing number of delay reports. The room was more tense than usual. Counselor Neri spoke first. "We have waited for the humans to return. They have not. In their absence, the efficiency of our trade network has dropped. We must decide whether to reach out to them directly." Counselor Vesh still held his position. "If we reach out now, we show weakness. Let them see the effects of their absence. Then they will come to us." But several other voices joined Neri's. What if they never come? What if they have already decided the Council is no longer important to them? The debate lasted for hours, but no decision was made. The speaker closed the session with a statement that the matter would be reviewed again at the next assembly. In the halls outside, diplomats spoke in low tones. Some admitted privately that the humans might never return. Others believed that they would, but only on terms the Council might not like, and out in the lanes of deep space. The change was already visible. The stars were the same, the beacons still blinked, but the sense of steady order was fading. Without the quiet, constant presence of human ships, the network of travel and trade that had seemed unshakable now felt just a little less certain. The Council still believed they could wait, but for the first time, a quiet worry began to settle in the minds of those who truly watched the flow of the galaxy. The humans had stepped away, and the first small cracks had already begun to show. It began as whispers. Merchants returning from the edge of human space told quiet stories in station cafes. They spoke of large convoys of freighters traveling between planets in the Sol system. They said the ships carried heavy cargo, massive framework sections, fuel cells, and machinery too large for normal stations. The work seemed endless, with vessels moving in steady lines day and night. At first, the Council paid little attention. Construction projects were common. Worlds expanded, stations were upgraded, shipyards rebuilt. But as more reports arrived, the pattern began to look unusual. The size of the operation was far beyond ordinary expansion. On Heliura's orbital station, a cargo captain named Erlin sat with a group of pilots. His ship had been contracted to deliver raw ore to one of the outer colonies near human territory. "I did not see any Council ships out there," he told the others, keeping his voice low. "But I did see human freighters, dozens of them. They moved in perfect formation, no wasted motion, no delays. It was like watching a living chain move through space." Another pilot asked, "Did you see what they were carrying?" Erlin nodded slowly. "Framework beams, larger than any I've seen before, each one the size of a small station dock." The conversation spread, moving from pilots to traders, from traders to local officials, and eventually to the Council's intelligence department. Analysts began compiling reports, matching stories from unrelated sources. In the Council chamber, the speaker listened as an intelligence officer gave a brief update. "Activity in the Sol system has increased significantly in the past 60 days. Civilian and freight traffic is up by 35%. Outer system traffic beacons show heavy use along routes between Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn." Counselor Neri leaned forward. "Do we know what they are building?" The officers shook their head. "Our scans from beyond their borders show elevated energy readings, but the source is unclear. Their ships are careful to shield cargo whenever possible. Long-range observation drones have not been permitted entry. Counselor Vesh dismissed the report. Construction in their own space is not our concern. They are reorganizing after stepping away from the talks. That is all. But others were not so certain. Counselor Neri replied, when an ally begins building something on that scale and does not tell anyone, it is always our concern. Beyond the Council's reach, the activity in human space continued to grow. Around Jupiter, massive docking arms extended from shipyards, holding incomplete structures in place. These were too large to be simple stations. Their designs were unfamiliar, with long, curved sections connected by broad platforms. Engineers in sealed suits moved along the frameworks, and smaller craft darted between them like insects in a hive dot in orbit around Mars. Factories ran without pause. Automated haulers carried processed materials toward the inner planets, while others made the long journey to the asteroid belt to collect more resources. Every part of the system seemed to be in motion. At Earth's Central Command, Mira reviewed daily progress reports. The numbers were impressive: construction ahead of schedule, energy output increasing steadily, and material reserves holding strong. She studied a diagram of one of the new structures, its lines clean and balanced, its purpose known only to a small group of leaders. Her aide Tomas entered with a datapad. More messages from the border stations, he said. Merchants keep asking what we're building. Some of them sound curious, others a little nervous. Mira smiled faintly. Let them wonder. We are not hiding our work, but we will not explain it before we are ready. In the months that followed, the rumors became harder to ignore. On the Council's lower decks, clerks and assistants shared stories they had overheard. Some said the humans were building a fleet larger than the Council's. Others claimed they were constructing a single massive station, larger than anything the galaxy had seen. The speaker called for a private meeting with a few senior council members. We cannot allow wild stories to shape opinion, they said. We must know the truth, authorize deep-range scans, but keep them quiet. The scans were carried out from the edges of human space. Distant sensors captured only fragments, faint bursts of energy, heat signatures from large construction zones, and the slow movement of heavy objects between planets. But the details remained unclear, and the mystery only grew. On Heliura, traders began adjusting their routes again. Some avoided human space entirely, saying they did not want to get caught in the middle of something they did not understand. Others made quiet visits to the outer colonies, hoping to see the projects for themselves. One trader, a careful and observant woman named Selen, managed to get a brief glimpse of one of the great structures in orbit near Saturn. She described it later to a council contact. It was not a ship, not a station, either. It was something new. Long arcs of metal reaching out in all directions, with bright lines of light running along them. It felt purposeful. Her description was added to the growing list of uncertain reports. Back on Earth, the work continued without pause. The people involved in the projects were focused, almost disciplined in their pace. There was no talk of the council, no debate about whether they should return to the talks. Their attention was fixed on the future they were building. Tomas stood beside Mira one evening as they looked down at the lights of the construction zones. From an orbital platform, "Do you think the council has figured it out yet?" he asked. Mira shook her head. "No, they are still trying to decide if they should worry. By the time they do, our work will be ready." The platform rotated slowly, and the view shifted to reveal the curved lines of one of the largest structures. Against the black of space, its silver surface reflected the faint glow of distant stars. Ships moved around it like careful threads, in a great weaving, each one adding a piece to the whole. Far away, in the council chamber, the debates continued. Some members urged sending a formal delegation to speak with the humans. Others argued to leave them alone and wait. No decision was made. And in the quiet reaches of the Sol system, humanity's silent projects grew larger every day, uninterrupted, undisturbed, and entirely on their own terms. The council chamber was unusually silent when the message arrived. The speaker sat at the head of the long, curved table, Round them, the council members waited. The usual hum of conversation had stopped. Everyone knew something important was coming. A signal from human space had broken the long silence. It was unexpected and clear. The council's communication officer opened the encrypted transmission. The room darkened as the screens lit up, displaying the face of Mira, the human envoy who had once sat at the peace talks. Her expression was calm, steady. There was no anger or threat, only quiet strength. "I speak to you as a representative of humanity," Mira began. "We have listened to your words and watched your decisions. We have given space for time to pass, but now the moment to speak has come." She paused, letting her words settle. The council members leaned forward, caught by the seriousness of her tone. For too long, humanity has been asked to conform to rules made by others. We sought peace, but peace built on mistrust is not peace at all. We withdrew because we believed it was the only way to protect our future. Mira's gaze moved across the chamber as if seeing each person. But isolation does not mean silence. We have not forgotten the galaxy we share with you. We have not stopped watching or caring. The transmission shifted to images of the massive structures in Sol orbit. The screen showed the construction that had been kept secret for so long. The shapes were grand, gleaming in the light of the sun, with ships moving in disciplined patterns. "These projects are the foundation of humanity's new path," Mira said. "They will allow us to reach farther, to build stronger, and to protect those who depend on us." A murmur ran through the room. Some council members exchanged uneasy glances. Mira continued, "We are ready to speak again, but we will do so on terms that respect humanity's right to self-determination. We invite the council to come to us, to meet us where we stand now, not where you expect us to be." The message ended as quickly as it had begun. The chamber stayed quiet for several moments. Then Councillor Neri stood. "This changes everything," she said. "They are no longer the partners we knew. They have built a new future without us. We must decide how to respond." Councillor Vesh shook his head. "We should not rush. They are testing us. If we act hastily, we risk losing more than we gain." The speaker raised a hand for silence. "We will prepare a delegation to visit human space. We must understand their intentions fully before any decision is made." Outside the chamber, news of the message spread quickly. Across council worlds, citizens and leaders alike reacted. Some felt hope that talks might restart. Others feared that a new conflict was beginning. In the Sol system, Mira watched the reactions carefully. She knew the council's hesitation was natural. The humans had changed, and the galaxy would take time to accept it. Back on Earth, Mira met with the leaders of the construction projects. "We have sent our message," she said. "Now we must be ready for whatever comes next." Her aide Tomas nodded. "The council will come. We must show them we are strong and united." The massive stations continued to grow, symbols of humanity's new strength. But beneath the surface, Mira felt the weight of the future. The next step would define not only humanity's place in the galaxy, but the fate of all who shared it. The council delegation arrived in the Sol system aboard a sleek ship, shining silver under the distant sun. The members were careful and formal. They carried the weight of many worlds on their shoulders. As the delegation approached the massive structures orbiting Jupiter, they could see the scale of what humanity had built. Long arcs of metal stretched out, connected by broad platforms that gleamed with soft lights. Smaller ships moved around the stations with perfect order. Mira met them at the docking bay. She was calm but proud. The humans had prepared well. They had learned that strength was not only about power, but also about respect. "Welcome," Mira said simply. "We hoped you would come." Councillor Neri stepped forward. "We have come to understand what you have created and why you withdrew from the talks." Mira nodded. "We will show you. But first, we must ask that you see humanity as it is now, not as you remember." The delegation toured the stations, witnessing the energy fields that protected the massive structures, the laboratories researching new technology, and the training centers where humans prepared for the future. Everywhere, the signs were clear. Humanity had not been idle. They had grown, adapted, and built a future on their own terms. As they sat together in the central chamber, Mira spoke again. We withdrew because we needed to find our own way. We were tired of being told how to live and what to value. This construction is more than metal and machines. It is a statement. Counselor Vesh looked around carefully. A statement that you are strong. Yes, Mira said, but also that we are willing to cooperate if there is respect and equality. We do not seek to dominate. We seek to share. The council members exchanged looks. It was a difficult truth to accept. The humans had changed, but they had not become enemies. They were different, stronger, and ready to be partners on new terms. Over the following days, talks began again. This time, they were honest and open. The humans spoke of their new projects, their goals for exploration and defense. The council shared their concerns and hopes. Slowly, the walls between them began to fall. The past disagreements were not forgotten, but they no longer controlled the future. When the delegation prepared to return home, the speaker spoke to Mira. This is the start of a new chapter, one where humanity and the council can work together again. Mira smiled. And one where we will stand as equals. As the council ship left the Sol system, the human stations glowed softly. In the distance, symbols of a future built on strength, respect, and the hope for lasting peace.